My coworker kept mocking my accent and calling it our inside joke until she did it in front of our boss. I was in the break room eating my lunch when Anna walked in with 2 other people from our floor. She saw me at the table and her face lit up like she had just found her favorite toy. "Konnichiwa," she said, and bowed with her hands pressed together. I stared at her like a fish out of water and said, "I'm Korean." Anna waved her hand like I had just told her something completely irrelevant. "Same thing. You all look the same to me." She laughed and looked at the others to make sure they were laughing too. They were. "And you all sound the same too. Like this." She made her voice high and tight and choppy. "Oh, hello everyone, I am Irene and I like to eat rice for lunch. Please excuse me while I do my work very very hardu." She bowed again after every few words, squinting her eyes into slits with her fingers. The others laughed harder. I kept my voice steady even though I wanted to throw my fork at her head. "That's not what I sound like." Yes it is. That's literally exactly what you sound like." Anna sat down across from me like we were friends having a normal conversation. "On the client call this morning you were like," and she did it again. "Oh yes, Mr. Client, we will have the report ready for you by Friday." It's so cute, honestly. Like a little anime character. "Anna, I was born in California. I don't have an accent." Anna tilted her head and pursed her lips like I had just said something adorable. "Irene, babe, you definitely have an accent. It's not a bad thing. I literally love Asian culture. I watch K-dramas all the time. I'm like obsessed with BTS. I'm basically more Korean than you are." She looked at the others. "Right? I'm like an honorary Korean at this point. I couldn't believe I was dealing with this BS in the middle of the day. You just said konnichiwa, that's Japanese." "Oh my god, who cares? It's all the same." Anna rolled her eyes. "This is what I mean. You people are so sensitive about everything. I'm literally complimenting you. The accent is cute. You should be thanking me for noticing." I looked at the other 2 people standing behind her. One of them was looking at the floor. The other was looking at her phone. Neither of them said anything. "Can you just stop doing the voice thing?" I said. "It's not funny." Anna's face changed into something that almost looked like sympathy. Almost. "Irene, sweetie. It's just a joke. It's like our inside joke." She reached across the table and put her hand on mine like she was comforting a child. "You know I love you, right? I'm not racist. I literally dated a Korean guy in college. Well, I think he was Korean. He might have been Chinese. Whatever. The point is, I'm basically an ally." She squeezed my hand. "You need to learn to laugh at yourself. That's your problem. You take everything so seriously. It's like a cultural thing, I think. You guys are so focused on work and success that you forget how to have fun." She turned to the others. "Okay, so anyway, like I was saying, on the call this morning she was talking to the client and she did it again right there with her hand still on mine and everyone laughed louder this time because I had tried to say something and she had made me look crazy for it. Because now they all had permission to laugh. That's when the door opened. Anna didn't notice at first. She was still doing the voice, still bowing, still pulling her eyes into slits. "Anna." The voice came from the doorway. Our boss Dimitri was standing there holding a coffee mug. His face was completely still. Anna's head snapped toward him. Her hands dropped from her eyes. "Oh, hi, Mr. Sterling. We were just joking around. Irene knows I'm kidding. Right, Irene? Tell him you know I'm kidding." I didn't say anything. I couldn't think of a single word. Dimitri looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at me. Then he walked to the coffee machine and filled his mug in complete silence. No one dared say a word. The only sound was the coffee pouring. When he was done, he walked out without saying anything. I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Though I found out 3 days later when I saw Anna walk past my desk with a cardboard box full of her things. Picture frames, a mug, her little succulent she kept by her monitor. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from her number. "I got fired because of you. You just stood there when I asked you to defend me. This isn't over." I didn't report her. I didn't ask for any of this. The boss just walked in at the wrong moment. But Anna had already decided whose fault it was. I read her text again that night. This isn't over. I wanted to believe she was just angry. That she would calm down and move on and find another job and forget I existed. But Anna wasn't the type to let things go. She was the type to make sure you regretted crossing her. And right now she had me at the top of her list. I walked into the office the next morning and someone hip-checked me so hard my coffee spilled down the front of my shirt. I looked up and it was a woman named Gwen, who I had eaten lunch with maybe a dozen times. She looked at the coffee dripping down my blouse and said, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there. You're just so quiet, you know? Like a little mouse. Or I guess I should say like a little..." She stopped herself and smiled. "Never mind. Wouldn't want to get fired for making a joke." I stood there with hot coffee soaking through my shirt and watched her walk away laughing. A few people nearby saw the whole thing. None of them said anything. One of them smirked. I went to the bathroom to clean myself up, and when I came back, there was a sticky note on my keyboard. It said, "Snitch," in black marker. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash and tried to focus on my work. but I couldn't stop thinking about the way Gwen had looked at me. Like I was nothing. Like I was less than nothing. Like I was something she had stepped in and was trying to scrape off her shoe. An hour later, I walked to the printer to pick up some documents and heard my name. Except they weren't calling me. They were talking about me. I stopped around the corner and listened. She's been here less than a year and she already got someone fired. It was a guy's voice. Stan. I had helped him with a presentation last month. Anna told me she's done this before at her last job. Like she targets people and waits for the perfect moment to destroy them. That's insane. A woman's voice. I didn't recognize it. I know. And apparently she's sleeping with Sterling. That's why he believed her over Anna. That's why Anna got fired so fast with no investigation or anything. Wait, are you serious? The woman gasped like she was getting the hottest gossip in town. Dead serious. Why else would he fire someone on the spot for making a joke? Use your head. Anna didn't even get a warning. She just got walked out like a criminal. Because little Miss Diversity hire over there batted her eyes and Sterling came running. I stepped around the corner. Stan saw me and didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. He just raised his eyebrows like I was the one who had done something wrong. I'm not sleeping with anyone, I said. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. And I didn't get Anna fired. She got herself fired. Stan crossed his arms. That's not what I heard. Then you heard wrong. He laughed in my face. Sure, whatever you say. He looked at the woman next to him and talked to her like I was completely invisible. This is what Anna was talking about. She plays innocent, but she knows exactly what she's doing. They walked away, and I stood there holding my documents feeling like I had just been punched in the stomach. At lunch, I tried to eat at my desk, but I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about what Stan said. Sleeping with Sterling. Where did that even come from? How was I supposed to fight something like that? I decided I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. So I went to the break room hoping to find a friendly face. Instead, I found Gwen. She was sitting at a table with two other women, and when I walked in, they all stopped talking and looked at me like I had just interrupted a funeral. I thought about turning around, but I was tired of feeling like a criminal in a place where I hadn't done anything wrong. So I sat down at their table. Hey, I said. Can I talk to you for a second? Gwen leaned back in her chair and exchanged a look with the other women. Sure. Talk. I explained what actually happened in the break room. The accent, the bowing, Anna pulling her eyes into slits with her fingers. How I asked her to stop and she just laughed in my face. And that's when Mr. Sterling walked in and saw the whole thing, and that's why she got fired. Not because of anything I did. Because of what she did. Gwen listened with this little smile on her face the whole time. When I finished, she tilted her head and said, Okay, but why didn't you say something before? If it was so bad, why did you just let her do it for months? I did say something. That day. Right before. But why that day? Gwen leaned forward. Why not the first time she did it? Or the second time? Why did you wait until the boss was right there to suddenly have a problem with it? I didn't know he was going to walk in. Sure. Gwen looked at the other women and they all had the same expression. Like I was lying. They had already decided I was guilty, and nothing I said would change their minds. Look, Irene, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying it's a little convenient. Anna makes a joke she's been making forever, and suddenly the one time the boss sees it, she gets fired on the spot. And you just happen to be there looking all sad and victimized? She was being racist. Gwen rolled her eyes. She was doing an accent. It's not that serious. You ruined her whole career because you couldn't take a joke. She stood up and grabbed her tray. I feel sorry for whoever you decide to go after next. They left. All three of them. And I sat there alone at the table with my untouched lunch feeling like the walls were closing in. That night, Anna messaged my college roommate Tasha. She sent 6 paragraphs about how I was manipulative and dangerous and had a history of destroying people. Tasha forwarded me the screenshot and asked if I was okay, and I told her it was all lies. She replied with, That's so crazy, and then nothing else. I waited for a follow-up text. Something like, I'm so sorry, or, That's insane, I don't believe her. It never came. By the next morning, I had been removed from our group chat. 8 years of birthday plans and late-night venting and sending each other stupid memes, and I didn't even get a goodbye. Just a notification that I was no longer a member. I checked Instagram and 3 people from that chat had unfollowed me overnight. Then I checked Facebook and saw that Tasha had removed me as a friend entirely. 8 years just gone, all because Anna wrote 6 paragraphs. I made a mistake then. I texted Anna. I wrote, Hey, I'm sorry for how things went down. I never wanted any of this to happen. I thought if I apologized, she might stop. I thought she might leave me alone. I was wrong. The next day, I walked into the break room to get water, and the conversation didn't just stop. It pivoted. A woman I barely knew held up her phone and said loud enough for everyone to hear, Oh, look, it's the girl who feels so guilty she had to apologize. She turned the screen toward me. Anna had screenshotted my text and sent it to everyone with a message underneath that said, See? Even she knows she was wrong. She literally admitted it. But I'm still the one without a job. I looked around the room. 6 people were all looking at me like I had just unalived the president. One of them shook their head like I had just proven everything Anna ever said about me. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and walked back to my desk and sat there staring at my computer screen without seeing anything on it. After a meeting that afternoon, Dmitri asked me to stay behind. Everyone else filed out, and he closed the door, and I thought for a second that maybe I was in trouble too. Maybe Anna had gotten to him somehow. Maybe he had changed his mind about what he saw. But then he looked at me, and his face wasn't angry. It was concerned. "Something's going on with you," he said. "You've been off all week. You flinch every time someone walks by your desk. You didn't say a single word in that meeting. Talk to me." I opened my mouth to say I was fine, everything was okay, and I just needed to get through this and it would blow over. But I couldn't get the words out. I was tired of people calling me a snitch and a diversity hire and a snake. Tired of watching my friendships disappear one notification at a time. So I told him everything. The sticky notes on my desk, Gwen spilling coffee on me on purpose, Stan telling people I was sleeping with him to get Anna fired, the way people stopped talking when I entered a room and started again the second I left, my college friends cutting me off, the screenshot of my apology being passed around like proof of a crime. I told him I didn't know how to make it stop because everything I tried just made it worse. He listened. He didn't interrupt or check his phone or glance at the door like he was waiting for me to finish so he could leave. He just let me talk until I ran out of words. When I was done, he was quiet for a moment. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his jaw like he was thinking about something heavy. "She's doing this because of what I did," he said finally. "I fired her. Not you. I made that call. And you've been taking all the heat for it while I sat in my office not knowing any of this was happening." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. "That's on me," he said. "I should have checked in sooner. I should have realized she wasn't going to just disappear quietly." He looked at me and his voice got quieter. "You shouldn't have had to deal with this alone. And you're not going to anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means we're going to figure this out. Together. Okay?" I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. For the first time in a week, I felt like someone actually saw what was happening to me. I didn't feel invisible or crazy in that moment. Dmitri believed me. That should have felt like a win. But Anna had spent a week burning my life down while I was still figuring out what was happening. And she did all of that without stepping foot in the building. I didn't know what came next, but I knew that she was only just getting started. The next day, Dmitri called me into his office. He closed the door behind me and told me to sit down, and I braced myself for bad news. But when he sat across from me, his face wasn't worried. It was serious in a different way. Like he had been carrying something heavy and was finally ready to put it down. "I need you to know something," he said. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I think you've earned the right to hear it." I waited. "Anna had 2 HR complaints before you. One for making fun of a coworker's weight. One for telling a black employee she was pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I felt like someone had just dumped ice water over my head. All this time. All this guilt I had been dragging around like a dead body. All those nights lying awake wondering if I had overreacted. Wondering if everyone was right about me. And Anna had been doing this to people for years. I wasn't special. I wasn't even unique. I was just the last in a long line of targets. She was already on her final warning when I walked into that break room," Dmitri continued. "I didn't fire her because of you, Irene. I fired her because she had burned through every chance this company was ever going to give her." My brain was still rearranging itself around this new information. Anna had made me feel like I had committed some unforgivable sin, like I had destroyed an innocent woman's life over a harmless joke. She had convinced half the office of the same thing, and the whole time she had a file thick enough to get her fired twice over. "I know this doesn't fix what's been happening to you," Dmitri said, "but I needed you to know the truth. You didn't do anything wrong. She did, and she's been doing it for a long time." I nodded. My throat felt tight and I didn't trust myself to speak. That night I left work around 7. Later than usual, but I had been trying to catch up on everything I had fallen behind on while my life was falling apart. The sun had already set, and the streetlights were buzzing to life as I pulled into the parking lot of my apartment complex. I grabbed my bag and got out of the car and started walking toward my building. I was almost at the front door when I noticed her. Anna was sitting on the bench outside my building. Anna was just sitting there with her legs crossed and her hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a bus. I stopped walking. My keys were in my hand and I could feel my pulse in my throat. She looked up at me and smiled. "Hi, Irene. What are you doing here?" "Just wanted to see where you lived." She stood up slowly like she had all the time in the world. "Nice building. A little old, but it has character. I like the brick. Very cozy." She took a step toward me. "Unit 5A, right?" My cooter dropped. She knew my unit number. She had been watching long enough to figure out which apartment was mine. "You need to leave," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Or what?" Anna tilted her head. "You'll call the cops? And tell them what exactly? That I'm sitting on a public bench? That I happen to be in the same neighborhood as you?" She laughed. "Come on, Irene. You're smarter than that. This is harassment. This is a free country." She took another step closer. "What are you gonna do? Call immigration?" "Oh wait. She put on that voice again. The high-pitched, choppy one. Huwu 911? Someone is sitting on a bench and it's scawing me very much. Please send Hupe. She dropped the voice and smiled. That's what you sound like, by the way, in case you forgot. I don't have an accent. Sure you don't. She rolled her eyes. You know what's funny? I used to think you were just some quiet little nobody. The kind of person who fades into the background. Good at math, bad at English. The model minority who keeps her head down and does what she's told. She shook her head. But you're not, are you? You're the kind of person who destroys someone's entire life and then goes home and sleeps like a baby. I didn't destroy your life. You did that yourself. Her smile disappeared. Excuse me? You had 2 HR complaints before me. You were already on your last warning. I didn't get you fired, Anna. You got yourself fired. I was just standing there when it finally caught up to you. For a second, something changed in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or anger. I couldn't tell which. But then the smile came back and it was worse than before. Colder. You know I've been doing a lot of thinking since I got fired. About what matters, about what I want. She looked at my building and then back at me. I don't have a job anymore, Irene. I don't have a reputation to protect. I don't have any reason to play nice or follow rules or care about consequences. Her eyes locked onto mine. But you do. You have so much to lose. Your job, your friends, your family. She smiled. How's your sister, by the way? Mia, right? She seems sweet, very active on Instagram, posts a lot of pictures of her apartment. You can practically see the address from some of those photos if you zoom in close enough. Every muscle in my body went rigid. Stay away from my sister. I'm not doing anything to your sister. I'm just saying she should be more careful about what she posts online. Dangerous world out there. Never know who's watching. Anna stepped back and smoothed down her jacket like we had just finished a pleasant conversation. Anyway, I should get going. Early morning tomorrow. Lots to do. She started walking away and then stopped and turned back to look at me. Oh, and Irene? You might want to start locking your car. I noticed you left it unlocked the other night. Anyone could just walk up and get inside, sit in your seat, touch your things, go through your glove compartment. She winked. Just looking out for you. That's what friends are for, right? She walked away into the darkness and I stood there frozen until I couldn't hear her footsteps anymore. Then I ran inside and locked my door and checked every window in my apartment twice. The next morning I told Dimitri everything. The bench outside my building. The fact that she knew my unit number. The threat about my sister. The comment about my car being unlocked. I told him word for word what she had said, and I watched his face transform as I spoke. The concern I had seen before hardened into something darker. Something protective. She went to your home, he said. She went to where you live, and she threatened you. And my sister. She mentioned Mia by name. She said she's been looking at her Instagram. Dimitri stood up and walked to the window. He stood there for a long moment with his hands in his pockets staring out at nothing. When he turned around, his jaw was tight. This isn't office drama anymore, Irene. This is criminal behavior. This is stalking and intimidation and harassment. Can I even prove any of it? She didn't technically do anything illegal. She was just sitting on a bench. She told you she knew which unit you lived in. She mentioned your sister by name. She said she'd been in your car. His voice was getting louder. That's not just sitting on a bench. That's psychological terrorism. I know, but proving it is different than knowing it. He sat back down across from me. We're documenting everything. Every word she said. Every time she shows up. Every single thing she does. We're building a file so thick that HR can't ignore it, and if they try, we're going to the police. That night he stayed late with me. We sat in his office with the door closed and the rest of the floor empty, and I wrote down everything I could remember. He helped me organize it into a timeline and put it in a folder and told me we would take it to HR first thing in the morning. At some point, I looked up and realized it was almost 10. The cleaning crew had come and gone hours ago. We were completely alone. You don't have to do all this, I said. Stay this late. Help me build a case. This isn't your problem. He looked at me like I had just offered him a glass of poison. I fired her. She's doing this because of my decision. You think I'm going to go home and watch TV while she shows up at your apartment making threats? Most people would. I'm not most people. He leaned forward. And for the record, she's trying to destroy your life, Irene. I'm not going to sit back and let that happen. Nobody had ever said anything like that to me. Not at work. Not anywhere. I had spent weeks feeling like I was screaming into a void while everyone walked past pretending they couldn't hear. And here was this man sitting across from me at 10 o'clock at night, building a case against someone who wanted to ruin me. Thank you, I said. The words felt inadequate, but they were all I had. Don't thank me. Just let me help. Then my phone rang. My sister Mia. The person I talked to more than anyone else on the planet. I picked up hoping to hear her usual chaos. Roommate drama, work complaints, some guy who texted her back too slowly. Instead, her voice was shaking. Irene, who's Anna? Everything inside me went cold. What did she say to you? Some woman just messaged me on Instagram. She said you ruined her life and that you're manipulative and dangerous and... Her voice cracked. She said you're going to get what's coming to you. She said she knows where I live, Irene. She said she's been watching. Who the hell is this person? Anna had done exactly what she said she would do. She had reached into my personal life and wrapped her fingers around someone I loved and squeezed. Everything she told you is a lie, I said. All of it. She got fired because she was being racist to me at work and my boss saw it. She's been harassing me ever since because she needs someone to blame. She sent me like 15 messages, screenshots, voice notes. She said I should be careful because dangerous people attract dangerous situations. Irene, I'm scared. Block her. Right now. Don't respond to anything else she sends. Don't engage at all. Should I call the police? I'm handling it. Just block her and call me if she contacts you again. When I hung up, Dimitri was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. She messaged your sister? 15 times apparently. Told her she knows where she lives. Told her to be careful. His hands curled into fists on top of his desk. Screw HR. We're going straight to the police first thing tomorrow. I went home that night and locked every door and window. I didn't sleep much that night. Every noise outside my window made me jump. Every car that drove past made my heart race. Anna wanted me to feel scared and hunted and alone, and it was working. The restraining order was supposed to fix things. For 2 weeks, I let myself believe it had. No sightings, no messages, no Anna. Just quiet. But she wasn't gone. She was waiting. And when she came back, she wasn't playing games anymore. She wanted blood. Mine. His. She didn't care whose as long as someone was bleeding. We filed the restraining order the next morning. Dimitri came with me to the police station and sat next to me while I filled out the paperwork and answered questions and showed them the screenshots of Anna's messages to my sister. The officer said it would take a few days to process, but once it went through, Anna wouldn't be allowed within 500 feet of me or my home or my workplace. He said most people backed off once they got served. He said I should feel safe. I wanted to believe him, especially because 3 weeks went by and nothing happened. No Anna at my apartment, no threats to Mia, no sticky notes on my desk or whispers behind my back, or coworkers treating me like I had a disease. The restraining order went through and Anna got served and the world kept spinning, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like maybe I could actually breathe again. Dimitri and I started having lunch together. Not planned or scheduled or anything official. He would just stop by my desk around noon and ask if I was hungry, and we would walk to the sandwich place around the corner, or grab something from the cafeteria and eat in his office with the door closed. At first, we only talked about work, the upcoming presentation to leadership, project deadlines, budget meetings, safe things, professional things, but after a while we started talking about other things. He told me about his divorce that happened 3 years ago. He said he and his wife grew apart slowly, and then all at once, and by the end, they were just two strangers who happened to share a mortgage. He said he threw himself into work after that because it was easier than going home to an empty apartment. He looked like someone who believed they failed at life. I told him that wasn't failure. That was just life happening the way it sometimes does. He looked at me for a long moment after I said that, and neither of us said anything, but something changed between us. Something I didn't have a name for yet. Another time, I told him about my dad leaving when I was 12. I told him that my mom really struggled after that, both mentally and physically. She worked 3 jobs to keep me and Mia fed and clothed, and then would cry until she couldn't cry anymore. I put myself through college on scholarships and stubbornness and 4 hours of sleep a night. I had spent my whole life trying to be invisible because invisible people don't become targets. He said that was the saddest thing anyone had ever told him. I said it wasn't sad, it was just true. He shook his head. That's exactly why it's sad. We somehow even started texting after work. It was little things at first, like articles he thought I would find interesting. A photo of the sunset from his balcony. Complaints about his neighbor's dog that barked at 3 in the morning every night without fail. I caught myself reaching for my phone every time it buzzed, hoping it was him. Caught myself smiling at my screen alone in my apartment like a teenager with a crush. Caught myself thinking about him at odd hours when I should have been thinking about literally anything else. One night, we both stayed late to work on the presentation to leadership I had to do, and was coming up fast. We were side by side in the conference room with empty coffee cups and laptop chargers tangled together, and the rest of the floor dark and silent. By the time we finished, it was almost 9, and we were the only 2 people left in the building. We walked out to the parking garage together. Our cars were on the same level, about 20 feet apart. We stopped in the space between them and stood there for a moment. Neither of us moved toward our own vehicle. "When this is over," he said quietly. "When Anna is completely out of your life and everything settles down, I want to take you somewhere." "Somewhere like where?" "I don't know yet. Somewhere that isn't this parking garage. Somewhere that isn't work." He paused. "Somewhere I can take you on an actual date without worrying about HR policies or people gossiping." I should have said something professional. Something about boundaries and workplace relationships and all the reasons this was complicated. But standing there in that empty garage with him looking at me like that, I didn't want to be professional. I didn't want to think about complications. "Okay," I said. He smiled. Okay, he said back. We stood there for another moment just looking at each other. Then he nodded and walked to his car, and I walked to mine, and we drove away in opposite directions. I smiled the entire way home. My cheeks actually hurt from it by the time I pulled into my parking spot. For the first time in over a month, I felt like things might actually be okay. Anna was legally barred from coming near me. The office had stopped treating me like a villain. I had a presentation to nail and a career to rebuild, and a man who wanted to take me somewhere when all of this was over. I let myself believe the worst was behind me. I parked in my usual spot and grabbed my bag and got out of the car. The night was quiet. Cool. The kind of calm that makes you forget anything bad has ever happened to you. Then I saw her. Anna was standing across the street from my building. Just standing there under a streetlight with her arms at her sides. Not moving. Not approaching. Just watching me with that same smile from the break room. The one that made my skin crawl. She lifted one hand and waved. Slow and deliberate. Like we were old friends. Then she turned and walked away into the dark. I stood frozen next to my car until I couldn't see her anymore. Until the sound of her footsteps faded to nothing. Until my hand stopped shaking enough to pull out my phone and call Dimitri. Hey, he answered. You get home okay? She was here, I said. My voice came out hollow. Anna. She was standing across the street, watching me. Silence. Then, go inside. Lock your door. I'm coming over. Anna waved at me from across the street just to prove that a piece of paper meant nothing to her. 3 weeks of silence, and I had let myself relax. But here she was again reminding me that she was still watching, still waiting. What came next was physical. What came next left marks. And it wasn't just me she went after. She wanted to hurt everyone who had ever stood in my corner. Starting with him. Dimitri showed up 20 minutes later. I buzzed him in and stood by my door waiting, and when he came down the hallway, I didn't even think about it. I just walked straight into him and pressed my face against his chest and let him wrap his arms around me. He didn't say anything. He just held me there in the doorway with one hand on the back of my head and the other around my waist, and I felt something inside me crack open that I had been holding together for weeks. I started crying. Not the quiet kind. The ugly kind. The kind where your whole body shakes and you can't catch your breath and you don't even care how you look because you're too exhausted to pretend anymore. He guided me inside and closed the door behind us, and we ended up on my couch with me curled into his side and his arms still around me, and I cried until I didn't have anything left. I'm sorry, I said when I could finally speak again. My voice was hoarse and my face was wet, and I probably looked like a disaster. I don't know why I'm falling apart like this. Because you've been holding it together for too long. His voice was quiet. Steady. You don't have to apologize for being human. I just thought it was over. I really thought she was done. I know. She was just standing there, smiling, like she wanted me to see her, like she wanted me to know that the restraining order didn't mean anything. I pulled back enough to look at him. What if she never stops? What if this is just my life now? He reached up and wiped the tears off my cheek with his thumb. Then we deal with it. Together. But you're not doing this alone anymore. You understand me? I nodded. He stayed that night and slept on the couch. But when I woke up at 3 a.m. from a nightmare, I couldn't remember. I went out to the living room. My heart was pounding when I asked if he could comfort me in my room. He nodded groggily, gently grabbed my hand and led me back to bed. I curled up next to him and fell back asleep with my head on his chest. In the morning, neither of us talked about it, but something had changed between us. Some wall that had been there before was gone now. I had let him see me at my worst, and he hadn't flinched. He hadn't left. He was still there. We reported the restraining order violation that day. There was more paperwork and more questions and more promises that they would look into it. I didn't believe any of it anymore, but I went through the motions because it was all I could do. 2 days later, I stayed late at work to prep for the presentation. By the time I left the office, the parking garage was almost empty. Just a few cars scattered across the concrete and the hum of the lights overhead. I was digging through my bag for my keys when someone slammed into me from behind. I hit the ground hard. My palms scraped against the concrete and my knees took the worst of it. Pain shot up through my legs and I rolled over trying to see who had pushed me, but there was no one there. Just empty space and the echo of footsteps running away. I sat on the ground for a long time with my heart pounding and blood seeping through my pants where the skin had torn. I knew it was Anna. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. I drove home with shaking hands and cleaned up the scrapes in my bathroom and didn't tell anyone what happened. I didn't want to worry Dimitri. I didn't want to file another report that wouldn't go anywhere. I just wanted to get through the presentation and figure out the rest later. Then Dimitri didn't show up to work the next morning. I texted him at 9 and got no response. Same thing happened when I called him at 10. Just got his dumb voicemail. By 11, I was starting to panic. He had never gone this long without answering me. I was about to leave the office and drive to his apartment when he walked through the door. His face stopped me cold. He had a black eye, split lip, and a cut above his eyebrow that had been bandaged but was still red and angry. He moved like everything hurt, like someone had taken a bat to his ribs and he was trying to pretend it didn't happen. I stood up from my desk and crossed the room and grabbed his arm. What happened to you? Not here. His voice was tight, somehow controlled. My office. I followed him down the hall and closed the door behind us and turned around to face him. Dimitri. What the hell happened? He sat down heavily in his chair and winced. 2 guys. In my parking garage last night. I was getting out of my car and they came out of nowhere. He touched his lip. They didn't take anything. Didn't even try. They just beat the hell out of me and left. What did they say? He looked at me. One of them said stay out of it right before they walked away. My blood went cold. Anna. She had sent people after him. She had hired someone to hurt him because he was helping me. Because he was on my side. This is my fault, I said. She did this because of me. She did this because she's unhinged. Don't you dare blame yourself for what she does. I went to the break room and got the first aid kit and came back and sat on the edge of his desk. Let me see, I said. He looked like he was going to argue, but then he didn't. He just tilted his face up toward me and let me work. I cleaned the cut above his eyebrow with antiseptic wipes. I was close enough to count his eyelashes. Close enough to smell his cologne mixed with something that might have been soap. His eyes never left my face the whole time I worked. My dad used to hit my mom, he said quietly. That's why my marriage ended. Not because we grew apart. Because she told me I was just like him and I couldn't prove her wrong. I stopped what I was doing. You're nothing like that. How do you know? Because I've seen what kind of man you are. You showed up at my apartment in the middle of the night because I was scared. You've spent weeks helping me fight someone who isn't even your problem. I pressed a fresh bandage over his cut. You're nothing like him. He caught my wrist before I could pull away, held it there. I don't know what I would do if something happened to you, he said. And that terrifies me. Nothing's going to happen to me. You don't know that. Then we'll deal with it together. Isn't that what you told me? He almost smiled. It looked painful with his split lip, but he did it anyway. Neither of us acknowledged that I was still sitting on his desk, that his hand was still around my wrist, that this wasn't how coworkers acted, and we both knew it. 3 days before the presentation, I was climbing the stairs to my apartment because the elevator was broken again. I was on the 3rd floor landing when the door to the stairwell slammed open behind me. Anna grabbed me by the back of my jacket and threw me into the wall. My shoulder hit the concrete hard, and before I could recover, she had a fistful of my hair and was yanking my head back. It's so funny how you thought a piece of paper was going to stop me. She was smiling. That same cold smile from outside my building. You ruined my life. You got me fired. You took everything from me, and now you're playing house with the boss like nothing happened. You got yourself fired, I said through gritted teeth. You were already on your final warning. I didn't do anything. You stood there and let it happen. She pulled my hair harder. You could have told him it was a joke. You could have defended me. But you just sat there with your sad little face and let him walk me out like a criminal. She leaned in close. You people are all the same. You come here and take our jobs and then cry racism whenever someone calls you out. It's pathetic. You're a snake. A conniving little dragon lady who smiles and bows and waits for the perfect moment to strike. Let go of me. Or what? You'll go cry to your boyfriend? Maybe bat your eyes and do that submissive Asian girl thing that men like him love so much? She laughed. I already lost everything, Irene. My job, my reputation, my friends. And for what? Because I made a few jokes? Because I didn't treat you like some fragile little China doll who can't handle anything? She slammed my head against the wall. Not hard enough to knock me out, but hard enough to make my vision go white for a second. Hard enough to leave a bump I would feel for days. You people love playing the race card until it destroys someone's entire life. Then suddenly it's not a big deal anymore. She let go of my hair and I slid down the wall. This isn't over until I say it's over. And I haven't even started with you yet. She let go of my hair and I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the stairs. By the time my vision cleared, she was gone. I sat there for 10 minutes before I could stand up. My head was throbbing and my hands were shaking and I could taste blood in my mouth where I had bitten my tongue. I didn't go to the hospital. I went to Dimitri. He opened his door and took one look at me and pulled me inside. He didn't ask what happened. He could see it on my face. He just sat me down on his couch and got ice for the bump on my head and held me while I told him everything. I'm calling the police, he said when I finished. And then what? We file another report that goes nowhere? Get another restraining order she ignores? We can't just do nothing, Irene. She put her hands on you. I know. I leaned into him and closed my eyes. But right now I just need to get through the presentation. I need to walk into that room and prove that she hasn't broken me. After that, we can figure out the rest. But I could barely focus. My hands shook when I practiced my talking points. I flinched at sudden movements. Every time someone walked up behind me, I had to stop myself from spinning around, ready to fight. The day before the presentation, Simone from HR found me in the hallway. She looked around to make sure no one was listening and then pulled me into an empty conference room and closed the door. Simone from HR pulled me aside the day before. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. Someone overheard Anna at a bar last weekend. She was telling people she's going to show up at your presentation and finish this. Whatever that means. The room felt like it was tilting. She's planning to come here? To the building? That's what it sounds like. I already told Dimitri and he's handling it. Security has her photo. They know not to let her through the doors. But I wanted to let you know. I pressed my hand against the conference table to steady myself. What if she gets in anyway? What if security doesn't recognize her? What if she finds another way? Simone put her hand on my arm. Dimitri is going to be in that room the entire time. He's not leaving your side. And honestly, after everything she's done, if she shows her face here, she's going to get arrested on the spot. The restraining order is still active. She'd be handing them a reason to lock her up. I wanted to believe that was enough. I wanted to believe that security and restraining orders and Dimitri sitting in the front row would be enough to keep me safe. But Anna had already proven that rules didn't apply to her. She had followed me to my apartment. She had sent people to beat up Dimitri. She had slammed my head into a wall in my own stairwell. A photo at the security desk wasn't going to stop someone like that. That night, Dimitri came over. We sat on my couch and went through my presentation slides one more time, even though I had already memorized every word. I think he just wanted an excuse to be there. I didn't mind. Security knows what she looks like, he said suddenly, like he could sense my worry. I talked to them myself. They're not letting anyone in without a badge, and if she shows up anywhere near the building, they're calling the police immediately. And if she gets past them? He looked at me. Then I'll be right there. Front row. I'm not letting her anywhere near you. You can't protect me from everything, Dimitri. Watch me. I didn't argue. There was something in his voice that made me believe him. Or maybe I just needed to believe him so I could get through the next 24 hours without falling apart. He left around 11. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Anna's face in that stairwell. The way she smiled while she hurt me. The way she talked about me like I was less than human. Around midnight, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. I should have ignored it. I should have turned off my phone and gone to sleep and dealt with it in the morning. But I couldn't help myself. I opened the message. 3 words. See you tomorrow. 3 words. She could have said nothing. She could have just shown up and caught me off guard. But that wasn't what she wanted. She wanted me to know she was coming. She wanted me to spend the whole night imagining what she had planned. And the worst part was that's exactly what happened. Would she make a scene? Would she try to hurt me again? Would she go after Dimitri? I didn't know. All I knew was that whatever Anna had been building toward for the past 2 months was finally here. The morning of the presentation, I woke up with a pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I showered and got dressed and stared at myself in the mirror for a long time, trying to find the version of me that could walk into a room full of executives and pretend everything was fine. She was in there somewhere. She had to be. Dimitri picked me up at 8. He didn't say much on the drive over, but he kept glancing at me like he was checking to make sure I was still breathing. When we pulled into the parking garage, he turned off the engine and looked at me. You don't have to do this today. We can reschedule. Everyone would understand. No. I shook my head. If I don't do this now, I never will. She wins if I hide. He reached over and squeezed my hand. I'll be right there the whole time. Front row. She's not getting anywhere near you. I didn't believe him. The conference room was already filling up when I arrived. Senior leadership sat around the long mahogany table with their laptops open and their coffee cups steaming. A few of them smiled at me when I walked in. Most of them didn't look up at all. These were busy people with busy schedules, and I was just another item on their calendar. Dimitri took a seat near the door, but still close enough to reach me if something went wrong. We exchanged a look before I began, and something passed between us that didn't need words. I'm here. You've got this. I took a deep breath and clicked to the first slide. The first 15 minutes went smoothly. I talked about quarterly projections and market analysis and strategic initiatives. I watched the executives nod along and take notes, and I started to feel something I hadn't felt in weeks. Confidence. Control. I actually thought I could do this. I didn't feel so broken. Then the door opened. A woman walked in wearing a dark blazer and glasses with her hair tucked under a short brown wig. She carried a folder under her arm like she belonged there, like she had every right to be in this room. It took me a second to recognize her. The glasses threw me off. The wig changed the shape of her face. But then she smiled, and my body froze because it could now recognize that smile anywhere. Anna. She closed the door behind her and locked it. The click of the lock echoed through the room like a gunshot. A few executives looked up from their laptops with confused expressions. One of them opened his mouth to say something, but before he could, Anna moved fast. Faster than I expected. She crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed me from behind. Then she reached into her blazer and pulled out a knife. In one swift move, she had one arm around my chest, and the sharp object was pressed against my throat. The metal was cold. I could feel my pulse beating against the blade. Someone gasped. A woman near the window put her hand over her mouth. An older man in a gray suit pushed his chair back from the table like he was thinking about running but had nowhere to go. Nobody move. Her voice sounded rehearsed. Nobody calls security. Nobody leaves this room until I get what I came for. Dimitri was on his feet. His face had gone pale and his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Anna, put the knife down. Sit down, Dimitri. She pressed the blade harder against my skin. Not enough to cut, but enough to make her point. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to them. She looked around the room at all the executives frozen in their seats. You all think you know what happened, don't you? You read the HR reports. You heard the gossip. Poor little Irene got bullied by the mean racist, and now she's the victim everyone has to feel sorry for. That's not... One of the executives started. I said nobody talks. Anna's voice went sharp. The executive shut his mouth immediately. I'm the one who gets to talk now. I've been waiting 2 months for someone to listen to my side of the story, and nobody would. So now you're all going to sit here and listen whether you want to or not. She started ranting about how unfair her termination was, how she had given years to this company and they threw her away over nothing, how I had manipulated everyone into thinking she was the villain when really she was the victim, how all she wanted was her job back, her reputation, her life. I stood there with the metal at my throat listening to her rewrite history, and something inside me filled up with so much anger, I couldn't contain it anymore. Tell them. My voice came out stead. Tell everyone here what the joke was. Anna faltered. What? You keep saying you got fired over a joke, so tell them. Show them. Do the impression you did in the break room that day. Shut up. Go ahead, Anna. If it was just a harmless joke, then do it right now. Show all these executives what you think is so funny. I could feel her arm tense around me. I could feel her trying to decide what to do. The room was silent. Everyone was watching, waiting. And then she did it. She put on that voice. The high-pitched, choppy one. Oh, hello everyone, I am Irene and I like to eat rice for lunch. Please excuse me while I do my work very very hardu. She laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. See? It's just a joke. Everyone laughed when I did it. It's not my fault she's too sensitive to take a little teasing. The room went quiet in a different way now. I could see the executives exchanging looks. The woman near the window still had her hand pressed over her mouth. A man in a blue tie was shaking his head slowly. They got it now. They understood what Anna had been fired for, and it wasn't a misunderstanding or an overreaction or a case of political correctness gone too far. It was exactly what it looked like. She wanted me to defend her doing that in front of Mr. Sterling. I said loud enough for everyone to hear. That's what she's been harassing me over for 2 months, because I didn't tell him it was okay for her to mock my accent and my race in front of the whole office. Whispers started spreading through the room. Someone muttered, Jesus Christ, under their breath, while others looked at her with pure disgust. I could feel the energy changing. Anna was losing them. She felt it too. Shut up! She yanked me backward and I stumbled. All of you, shut up! Stop whispering! But they didn't stop. The murmuring continued. People were looking at her differently now. With judgment. With contempt. Anna couldn't handle it. She needed them to be scared. She needed to be in control. So she slashed my arm. The blade cut through my sleeve and into my skin, and I screamed. Blood bloomed through the fabric and dripped down my wrist, and the room erupted into chaos. Someone yelled. Someone else knocked over a chair trying to stand up. An executive was fumbling with his phone trying to call for help. I said, shut up! Anna pressed the blade back against my throat. The blade was wet with my blood now. Everyone sit down or I cut her again. They sat. The room went quiet. My arm was throbbing and I could feel blood running down my fingers, but I couldn't think about that right now. I had to stay calm. I had to wait for an opening. Dimitri stepped forward with his hands raised. His voice was steady even though I could see the fear in his eyes. Anna, let's talk about this. You want your job back, right? We can make that happen. Just tell me what you need. Anna laughed. Now you want to negotiate? After everything you did to me? I'm listening now. Tell me what you want and I'll make it happen. She hesitated. I could feel her grip loosening slightly. She wanted to believe him. She wanted someone to finally give her what she thought she deserved. I want my job back, she said. I want a public apology from HR. I want her fired. She jerked her head toward me. And I want everyone to know that I didn't do anything wrong. Dimitri nodded slowly. Okay, we can work with that. But I need you to let Irene go first. As a sign of good faith. You're in control here. You don't need a hostage anymore. Anna's arm tightened around me again. No. She stays with me until I get what I want in writing. Dimitri kept talking, kept asking questions, and kept working out details. I realized what he was doing. He was buying time. He had to keep her distracted while he waited for security to figure out something was wrong. But I was tired of waiting. I stomped down on Anna's foot as hard as I could. She screamed and her grip loosened and I twisted away from her. She grabbed at my arm, the cut one, and pain shot through me, but I didn't stop. I elbowed her in the ribs and broke free and ran toward Dimitri. Anna lunged after me, but I was faster. I made it to Dimitri and he pulled me behind him, putting his body between me and her. Anna stood in the middle of the room with the blade still in her hand and blood on it and something unhinged in her eyes. But she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at Dimitri. And she was smiling. You two are pathetic, she said. You really think no one knows? You really think you've been subtle? She looked around the room at all the confused faces. Go ahead. Ask them what's really going on. Ask them why the boss is so protective of his little subordinate. Ask them why he shows up at her apartment in the middle of the night. The whispers started again, but they were different this time. I could feel people looking at me and Dimitri and putting pieces together in their heads. Yeah, that's right. Anna's smile got wider. She didn't get to finish. The door burst open and 2 security guards tackled her to the ground. The blade clattered across the floor and someone kicked it away. Anna was screaming as they pinned her down and zip-tied her wrists behind her back. Get off me! This isn't over! Irene, you're going to pay for this! They hauled her to her feet and started dragging her toward the door. I'll be back. You hear me? You won't be able to run to your boyfriend forever. Her voice echoed down the hallway until it faded into nothing. The room was dead silent. My arm was still bleeding. My heart was still pounding. I could feel everyone staring at me and Dimitri, and I knew exactly what they were thinking. Dimitri turned around to face me. Are you okay? Let me see your arm. You need to get this bandaged. You might need stitches. I'm fine, I said, even though I wasn't. He reached for me and then stopped. He noticed the eyes on us, the whispers starting up again. He took a step back and composed himself. I watched in real time as he put his professional face back on. You should go get that looked at, he said in a voice that was too formal, too distant. There's a first aid kit in your office. I understood what he was doing, though. This was damage control. He was putting space between us so the gossip wouldn't get worse. It hurt, but I understood. I walked out of the conference room alone, down the hall to my office. I closed the door behind me and sat down at my desk and pulled out the first aid kit and started cleaning my arm with shaking hands. The cut wasn't as deep as I thought. It would heal. Everything would heal eventually. But I knew what was coming. The questions, the rumors, the looks. Anna had planted a seed before they dragged her away, and now it was going to grow whether I wanted it to or not. I wrapped the bandage around my arm and stared at the wall and tried not to think about any of it. Tomorrow I would deal with the fallout. Tomorrow I would figure out what to say. But right now I just needed to breathe. I just needed 1 minute where nobody was looking at me or judging me or trying to destroy me. Just 1 minute of peace. I wasn't sure I would get it. Anna was gone. Security had her. The police were probably on their way. It was over. It should have felt like relief, but all I could think about was the way everyone looked at me and Dimitri before I walked out. The whispers that were already starting. Anna had taken one last shot before they dragged her away, and she hadn't missed. I had survived the knife. I wasn't sure I would survive what came next. I slipped out of the office and went home. The next morning, I almost didn't come in. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at the elevator doors and trying to convince myself to walk through them. Every scenario that played in my head ended with people staring at me and whispering about me and asking questions I didn't know how to answer, but I had spent too long hiding from things. Anna was gone. The only thing left to face was the aftermath. Dimitri's door was closed when I got to the office. His assistant told me he wanted to see me as soon as I arrived. I knocked and he called me in, and when I stepped inside, I saw that he wasn't alone. A woman from HR was sitting in one of the chairs across from his desk. She smiled at me, but it was the kind of smile people give you before they deliver bad news. Close the door, Dimitri said. His voice was calm, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. We need to talk about yesterday. I sat down in the empty chair and waited for the axe to fall. The HR woman, Wanda, explained that multiple employees had concerns about my relationship with Dimitri. She said the company had a duty to investigate any potential policy violations and that she needed to ask us some questions. I almost died on the spot. I knew falling for him was a bad thing, and yet I let myself for him either way. Now his career would be over, mine gone before it even began, and I doubt he would be with me afterwards. This was it. This was how Anna won even after everything. But then Dimitri started talking. He explained that nothing had happened between us while I was under his direct supervision. He said that we had grown close during a difficult situation, but that we had never acted on it in any way that violated company policy. He said that he had feelings for me, and that he intended to pursue a relationship with me, but only after the appropriate steps had been taken to ensure there was no conflict of interest. Wanda asked me if this was accurate. I said yes. She asked if I had ever felt pressured or coerced. I said no. She asked if Dimitri had ever used his position to influence my work or my standing in the company. I almost laughed. He had used his position to protect me from a stalker. That was the only influence he had ever had. After about an hour of questions, Wanda closed her notebook and said she would need to review everything with the rest of the HR team, but that based on what she had heard, she didn't anticipate any disciplinary action. She said the company appreciated our transparency and that she would be in touch with next steps. When she left, Dimitri leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. That could have gone worse. What happens now? He looked at me for a moment before answering. I'm transferring you to the sales department, effective next week. You'll report to Debbie instead of me. My heart sank. You're getting rid of me? I'm making it possible for us to be together without either of us losing our jobs. He stood up and walked around his desk and sat on the edge of it in front of me. He still smelled like his cologne was mixed with something that might have been soap. I told you I wanted to take you somewhere when this was over. I meant it. But I can't do that if you're still on my team. This is the only way. I understood. I didn't like it, but I understood. The rest of the day was strange. Word had spread about what happened in the conference room. Not just the hostage situation, but what Anna said before they dragged her out. People looked at me differently now. Some of them with curiosity. Some of them with judgment. But a few of them looked at me with something else. Something that looked like guilt. Gwen found me in the break room around lunchtime. She stood in the doorway for a moment like she wasn't sure if she was welcome, and then she walked over to where I was standing by the coffee machine. "I owe you an apology," she said. Her voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. I believed everything Anna told me. I didn't even question it. And after what I saw yesterday, she shook her head. "I was wrong about you. I'm sorry." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her that sorry wasn't enough, that she had made my life miserable for weeks, and a few words in the break room didn't erase that. But another part of me was just tired of being angry, carrying grudges, and letting Anna control how I felt about everything. "Thank you," I said. It was all I could manage. Stan apologized too. So did a few others. Not everyone. Some people would probably never admit they were wrong, but enough of them did that. By the end of the day, I started to feel like maybe I could actually work here again, without feeling like an outsider. Dimitri texted me that evening. "Are you free tonight?" I told him I was. He picked me up at 7. He didn't tell me where we were going, and I didn't ask. I just sat in the passenger seat and watched the city lights blur past the window and let myself feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. He took me to an expensive restaurant on the other side of town, somewhere nobody from work would see us, and we could just be two people having dinner without any of the baggage that came with who we were from 9 to 5. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. About the future and what it might look like. About all the things we had been too scared to say out loud when there was still a knife hanging over our heads. When he drove me home, he walked me to my door and stood there for a moment just looking at me. "I told you I'd take you somewhere that wasn't the parking garage," he said. "You did." He smiled, and then he kissed me. It wasn't a dramatic movie kiss. It was soft and slow and careful, like he was asking permission even though he already had it. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine, and we just stood there breathing the same air. And for the first time in months, I felt like everything might actually be okay.